Um, what are your current projects at this moment in time?
I'm currently working on a sitcom for BBC One called The Peter Principle, which stars Jim Broadbent. It's the second series of that, which I'm writing with two other guys, Mark Burton and Dan Patterson. Other things I'm doing are a film for Aardman Animations. They're the people who make Wallace and Gromit, and they're doing their first full-length feature film with sort of big American money behind it, and we're doing some work on the script for that, which has been good fun.
Okay, who is your comedy hero?
I always greatly admired John Cleese because he went from being a sketch writer, like myself, to writing fantastic sitcom Fawlty Towers, all the Monty Python stuff, writing the Monty Python films, then going on and writing A Fish Called Wanda, and I just think that his whole span of his career has been excellent all the way along the line, so I've always admired him.
Is there any gag or sketch that you've written that you would like to be remembered for?
I sort of try to partly take credit for making John Major grey. When we were sitting around at Spitting Image, I used to write for Spitting Image, and we used to sit around, and I said, why don't we make him grey all the time? And the producer said, no, that's just a one sketch idea. And I sort of lobbied, and eventually he was always grey. So I'd like to sort of take credit for that. Other jokes that are memorable, I don't know really. I sort of, I hope that I've written a book called Things Can Only Get Better, which I might be the definitive sort of word on Labour Party activists and Labour's years of opposition. So maybe that'll be on my tombstone. But otherwise, I'll leave that for other people to say.
Right. Oh, here you go. Are there any comedians that you hate and despise?
I tend not to use up too much energy hating, despising people. I get cross when things are done badly. When something's a good idea and done not very well, like they'll take a good comic premise and ruin it. That annoys me, but I don't hate and despise them. I've been pissed off by various comedians who've behaved badly. I don't mind naming Chris, what's his name, the guy from Red Dwarf, Chris Barry, who behaved quite appallingly once at a radio recording when he was the star of our show we were doing, and at lunchtime said he wasn't doing the show, and I had to spend the whole afternoon massaging his ego so that he would go and turn up for these poor people who were coming to be in the audience. So I'll never work with him again, but I don't suppose he cares. So. But I don't hate and despise him, I just think he behaved to get to that particular day.
What do you feel is your where's your basis for your material? Where do you feel that the centre is for all your material to come from?
Well, it's society, I suppose. You look out at the world around you, and you base it on that. Somebody cleverer than me once said that satire is a distorting mirror wherein we see ourselves more clearly, and I think, you know, whichever government we have and whatever the fashions are, there's always going to be something to laugh at, whether it's Mrs. Thatcher or cabinet ministers getting caught on Clapham Common. There's always something out there for us, and happily at the moment we live in a time when the President of America is a philanderer and the President of Russia is a drunk, so it's a great time to be a comedy writer.
Do you feel that there's less material under Labour that you can write about when there was under the Conservatives?
This did threaten to be the case for a while, particularly because audiences hadn't made their mind up about the government. They're sort of still being quite generous to them. The British public still feel fairly warm towards Blair and the cabinet, whereas under Major, people had such contempt that they just wanted to laugh at them, and you could do any joke and they'd fall out laughing. So you have to work a bit harder for your jokes now and pick your targets a bit more carefully. But things are shaping up quite nicely with the Ron Davis scandal and Robin Cook marrying his secretary and things like that. So those are the targets one has to sort of go for. But I think generally the point is, yes, the actual government themselves are in a honeymoon period still. So it's harder just to get a laugh off attacking them.
Who do you think the greatest satirist of our time is?
Who's the greatest satirist of our time? That's a toughie. I think it's a bit of a grand title to bestow on anyone, really. I loved some of the work that Rob Grant and Doug Naylor did on Spitting Image. I love what the Day-to-Day crowd did with TV News, and I think writers like Pete Sinclair and Mark Burton, who I know very well, are very good satirists. And I think that it's too diverse to specify who the greatest satirist is, but there's lots of people I admire really, and I like Have I Got News for You, Blue Jam, all those things. They're all valid and worthwhile, but there isn't one particular person I'd hold up as the greatest, I don't think.
In your Have I Got News for You days, when you used to write the gags, did you find it hard working as a team?
No, I think that's much easier writing as a team, actually. I worked with a team when I worked on Spitting Image, and I worked in a team on Have I Got News for You, because you get stuck on a joke and somebody will just show it to your mates, and they'll go, oh no, you see what you've done there is you've put your reveal at the beginning or something in some technical term, and they'll sort of help you sort of polish up the joke so it works as well as it can. Whereas when I wrote my book, sitting on a room of my own for 6 months is much harder, because you get stuck and you don't know quite where you got stuck or why, and that's much harder. So I like working in a team.
Now, as Clive Anderson has takes the piss out of all celebrities, is there a story that you can tell us which actually takes the piss out of him?
I played football with Clive last night, actually. Yes, he was rubbish at football last night, is the only thing I can tell you. And I gave him a gift of a goal, which he sort of half-heartedly put away. What can I tell you about him? No, he's a very nice guy. What can I do to take the piss out of him? There was a time, I said this is just another football story, but there was a guy who was his producer, called Dan Patterson, the guy who put him first on Whose Line Is It Anyway on the radio, and then on telly, and then produced Clive Anderson Talks Back. We were playing in a charity football game, and Dan Patterson won the ball in defence, beat about 4 midfielders, beat 2 defenders as well, played fantastic all the way up the park, and Clive was running on his left, and he just passed, and he could have just scored from an open goal, but he thought it was a charity football match, Clive Anderson is a celebrity, I'm not, and he just gave the ball to Clive, and Clive just put it in the back of the net. And Clive said on the interview afterwards, well, that was just a summary of my career. That producer did all the work, and I just turned up for the easy bit to get all the glory. But so there's no dirt on Clive Anderson, I'm afraid. But all I say is he's not as good as football as he used to be.
Is it true you used to guess the punchlines of the gags that were written for his TV show?
We used to guess them?
Yeah, before he read the rest of the gag.
Yes, that's it. That's true. That he used to, you'd read the setup, and then somebody would, he'd shout out, "Oh, I know what this joke is going to be," because he's quite a sort of gag writer himself. He, gags are a bit like sort of algebraic sort of equations. You can guess which way they're going to go, or work it out if you know what you're talking about. So yes, he did used to go, "Oh right, a deserted spot has been found by scientists. Oh, what is it? Made in a town centre." And yes, and it used to sort of annoy us because we'd spend the morning writing all these jokes, But yeah, it's fun.
That one's been answered. That one's been answered. Organised as usual.
That's right.
Yeah. What was your route into the industry?
I first started trying to do stand-up comedy about 1985, and I played to the London clubs like Jongleurs and that, but then I gave up on that because I got heckled too much. So then I sent sketches off to Weekending on Radio 4, which was a satire show which finished recently after 20 years and nearly as many laughs. And I got a commission to write on that with a guy I met there called Mark Burton, who's now my co-writer, and from there was sort of picked out to go and work on Spitting Image. So Weekending was the route in, and now we've hauled the ladder up because that programme is closed down, so there's no more room for any more comedy writers at all, I'm delighted to say.
What was the programme that you most enjoyed working on throughout the years?
I really enjoyed working on a radio show we did called Look Back at the Future, because we wrote it and performed it, and we were in complete control of it, and it was very well sort of received, and we got a few awards and got lots of nice reviews, and that was nice because it was just our own thing, and though it wasn't sort of didn't change the world, and people don't remember it now. It was great fun at the time, but I really enjoyed Spitting Image, and I really enjoyed How I Got News for You, and there's not many projects I do where I don't enjoy them.
Do you feel at this moment in time that American comedy is terrible and it's been hailed for all wrong reasons?
No, I don't think it's terrible. I think there's some very good American comedy. I think there's some very bad American comedy. I think it's very simplistic the way journalists say, "Oh, the Americans have got all the answers," or "the British have got all the answers." I like Larry Sanders, and I like Seinfeld, and I like Friends, believe it or not. I think Friends is very well written and very well produced and good characters and well acted. The Americans have the luxury of being able to throw a lot of money at their shows, so they've got sort of 10 or 15 writers just writing the gags and the one-liners that the characters are saying, let alone the people doing the story structure and working on plot motivation and everything. So I think it's possibly overrated, but I still think there's some excellent individual shows.
What would you feel is the most overrated British comedy around at the moment?
Most overrated? Well, I'm trying to think what is rated, really. There are some programmes that aren't to my taste. I think things like Last of Summer Wine get a sort of time to be retired. They've rolled down that hill on that pram one time too many for me. What else don't I like? I think there is a slight tendency to overrate the trendy shows, and these are shows that I do like myself. Things like The Day Today, which I think was an excellent show, but it did never got more than 1 million viewers, and it'd be great if you could have a show that was as high quality as that was really popular as well. That's something that Mark and I do try and do, be quite mainstream. So we do a straightforward sitcom like The Peter Principle, which with all its faults, got 6 million viewers. Sort of nobody really notices really, because it's a bit not very trendy to do a sort of mainstream sitcom. I mean, it had plenty of faults in it. I'm not denying that there weren't problems with it, but I think there's a slight sort of London snobbishness about comedy, which is that you have to be groundbreaking and sort of rather sneery to get all the positive Time Out reviews, whereas the ordinary people out there quite like some sort of good belly laughs and don't mind a sort of few sexy plot lines along the way.
The Peter Principle.
Mm-hmm.
When's it on again?
Well, it went out. The first series went out in '97 in the summer, and the second series is going out next year. We're writing it at the moment, and we'll be writing up to Christmas. Pre-production in January, probably filming February, March, April. It'll probably go out in May, June, something like that. May, June '98. They'll probably repeat the first series as well, I would hope, after Christmas.
So, how long does it? In a block of time, how long would you say it takes to write a script for one episode?
Well, it's a good question. It's taken us about 3 weeks to a month to write one half hour of TV, whereas something like Have I Got News for You we're doing a week, So a carefully plotted, structured sitcom is one of the hardest things I've had to write, and I was doing it yesterday. Yeah. Is that the mic on?
Yeah, about. There you go.
Do you want to ask that question again? Wait until
I
again.
remember what it was.
It was, how long does it take you to it?
How long does it take you in a block of time to write an episode?
Well, that is a very good question. It's currently taking about 3 weeks to a month to write every episode, which is probably too long, but we can't make it happen any quicker. Writing sitcoms is one of the hardest things I've done, just in terms of making sure that all the characters have enough to do each episode, to work within the sets that you've got. You can't go out and film loads of outside broadcast stuff, so you could say maybe 4 minutes OB. Limiting the number of characters because of budgets is also hard. You want to bring in sort of 3 extras there, but you can't afford it or whatever. So all that stuff is very constricting, and also you've got to think of the practicalities of keeping all the stars you've got happy as well. You've got to give them each enough lines, plus make the plot interesting. So yeah, it's hard, and that's why it takes so long.
Have you ever had the feeling when you're sitting there in the TV studio and you think that was a great gag and unfortunately no one laughs at it?
Yeah, plenty of times. Well, quite often on Have I Got News for You, Angus might be teeing up a joke that you're quite proud of, and he'll do the setup to it, and then Paul Merton will suddenly go, "Is that a wig you're wearing, Angus?" And you think, "Oh no, the moment's gone," and he'll read the the setup line again, and Paul Merton will go, "There's an echo in here, I'm sure he just said that," and then you go, right, well then this joke is never going to happen now because it's been ruined, and he might sort of splutter out the punchline, but the moment's gone, and you just sort of don't laugh. There's been times where we've thought things are funny and audiences just haven't bought the concept at all, but you never really know. We always say, let mistress audience decide.
There's a good question. Paul Merton, do you think he's a help or a hindrance in Have I Got News for You?
Well, he's clearly a help because it's his sort of surreal sort of tangents which give the show that sort of real edge to it. I think it's a brilliant balance actually. Ian Hislop is the informed sort of serious one, and Paul Merton is the sort of the bizarre surrealist who sort of will take a piece of news and instead of sort of being cross about whatever policy the government are pursuing, like Ian Hislop is, he'll just be silly and man in the street about it, and that's why I think the show is has such a good sort of recipe.
Peter Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that some of his work was some of the best that could be remembered for all time?
Well, I'd put him up there with... Oh, sorry, I'm mobile. I'll just take this. Hello? No, I'm very well, actually. I'm just being interviewed, actually. Can I ring you back in a bit? Okay, I'll speak to you in a bit. Bye. Sorry, yes, Peter Cook. Well, I think he did some excellent work. Not only, but also shows I thought were great, and the Dagenham dialogues I thought were fantastic. He did quite a bit of dross as well, actually, this time. But he was just someone who just really enjoyed a laugh and really enjoyed doing things for comedy's sake, and I sort of respect that. He never really sort of had a career plan, and if he did, he obviously lived it out in reverse. Because by the age of sort of 25, he had his own comedy club and a hit Fringe, Beyond the Fringe show, and then sort of went downhill from there. But I think he's done some fantastic work, but I wouldn't say that he was the greatest. I just think he was one of many greats.
Would you say, is there any comedian that you've ever seen that you felt was really good, but the audience never caught on to him? Or is there anyone that you've known that should have been famous but wasn't?
Actually, yes, that's happened a bit in my early days. We used to do a thing called News Review, which was sort of a stand-up sort of sketchy show thing in the Regent's Park area, and you'd get one or two sort of performers there and you thought, wow, they're going to the top, those people are really talented, and you'd never hear from them again, and you just wondered what it is that makes a star. And sometimes it's perseverance or luck or, you know, pushiness on their part. So there's no natural justice to the way that the star system operates. But I can't think of anyone I could name. But yes, I have met people who I thought were great, and then, you know, they've just disappeared for all time.
Paul Merton and Eddie Izzard, at the moment, they're fronting a type of new wave of comedy. Do you feel that it's revolutionising the new generation and the way they look at it?
These are grand terms for what is just a bit of entertainment, really. I think that Eddie Izzard is a very original and very funny comic, and Paul Merton's been going a good 10 or 15 years now, actually, so I wouldn't call him a new wave, but I think that there are fashions in comedy, and Eddie Izzard is surreal, and that's, I suppose, harks back to sort of the sort of surrealness of the Goons or Monty Python or whatever. But fashions, you know, ebb and flow, and I'm sure we'll have sort of some Benny Hill type comedy coming back into fashion in a few years' time. But I don't think it's revolutionising anything, really. I think it's just people's tastes change, and things that seem really new now probably happened in another cycle sort of 50 years ago, you know.
Next question. Have you heard of Chris Moyles?
Chris Morris, yeah.
Chris Moyles.
Chris Moyles, yeah, the Radio 1 DJ, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Right.
Mhm.
Do you feel that Chris Moyles takes it one too far by basically using sex as comedy all the time?
I haven't heard his show, but so I can't really comment on that one. But
how about, is sex a good basis for comedy?
well, my experience is that yes, it is, because the audience will always laugh at sex. Anything that is vaguely taboo or sort of naughty gets a laugh. And my sort of sad experience is you can write a dozen good political jokes, but you write political jokes that's got a sexual sort of overtone to it, and it'll get the biggest laugh of the night. So you can't argue with the laughter of the audience, I'm afraid. So I'm never averse to writing a bit of sex into my scripts.
Is there any type of institution, such as Arsenal Football Club, that gags can be fitted to?
Certainly, yeah. Arsenal's comic attribute used to be they're all criminals, or druggies and drunk drivers and stuff. Yeah, yeah, probably still true. We used to always use Fulham as the comedy useless team, which happens to be my team, but that's sort of becoming less true since they've been bought out by Mohammed Al Fayed and have sort of got loads of good players now. So you probably may give that attribute to Doncaster or Darlington or someone. Chelsea, or Millwall, you might say they're all thugs. Wimbledon, boring. So yeah, sure there are. There's comic attributes for everything. I remember American coming over to England, American comedian, when somebody mentioned the M25 and the audience laughed, and he said, "You guys have comic roads? You have comedy roads? That's amazing. M25 is a comedy road. We don't have funny roads." There's comic everything, I think, in this country. Yeah.
Anything, John? Grasping for ideas here.
I was just going to go the opposite way. When Dan said, "Is there anyone that you thought was a good comedian who never really made it?" Is there anyone you thought who's made it who you don't think is particularly funny?
There's plenty, but I ain't naming them. There's plenty of comics who I think are famous and not very talented, but or only sort of very slightly talented. But I wouldn't be as careless as to say who I thought they were, really, because these things come back and bite you.
Do you feel Chris Morris should be let loose on TV again?
Yeah, I think he's great, Chris Morris. I mean, obviously he pisses off the powers that be, and he can be a bit nihilistic in his sort of approach to things. But we need people like that to sort of. We need people like that in society, but not too many of them, I suppose. Yeah, I'd welcome another show from him.
Day to Day, I always remember as being one of them shows that I remember always from my childhood. Do you feel it was a groundbreaking show of some sort?
It was a groundbreaking show because it was an original way of satirising TV presentation more than the news itself. I'd always, in Spitting Image and How Eyewitness View, we'd always satirise the content of the news, and what they did is turn around and say, look at the pomposity of the way this is presented, look how stupid TV presentation is, and that was great because TV news is so full of itself and so thinks it's great, and we have to have extended programs because there's been lots of news, there are some news, it's really sort of we are great, and I think that was a really original thing to do at the time, and some great people came out of it, like Steve Coogan and Doom and Amanda and all those people. It was a good group of people together at one time.
Armando, he's produced great shows such as Friday Night Armistice, and do you feel that's another show to go along with Rory Bremner that are basically known by people as being the place to go to watch comedy on BBC Two and Channel 4?
Yeah, I think they're sort of quite satirical, those shows. They do a certain type of comedy. I like the OB stuff that they do on Armistice Festival, the inserts. I get a little frustrated when I can see that a show is being constricted by its budget, because they seem to be in the studio. They're a little bit confined to what they can actually do, just sort of chatting about the news. And that's an original way of talking about it, and good luck to them. But and Rory Bremner again, you sometimes wish he had bigger budget so he could just make a whole cabinet room or make the sets as grander rather than rely on just the impressions. So I like those shows, but again, they're just two of many shows that I like. There's my phone. Oh, what's going on? Okay.
Do you think that Seinfeld would run its course before it bowed down?
No, I don't particularly. I think they were happy to keep him going, but it's probably best to quit while you're ahead, and he could certainly afford to. So good luck to him, really. No, I think it's a good show.
Will ITV ever make a good sitcom?
That's a good question. They had a Is It Legal, didn't they? Which they've now didn't recommission, and that's gone to Channel 4. Channel 4 picked it up. I thought Is It Legal was okay. I'm sure they will make a good sitcom sooner or later. In fact, David Idderman, who's the head of ITV, is a very effective operator, and I hope he'll turn that channel around. They've got a problem, ITV, in that they're losing the bottom end of their market to the satellite channels, and the top end of their market is going to sort of BBC One. So they're really up against it. But I think one day their comedy may turn around, and they do great drama. ITV, so there's no reason why they shouldn't do great comedy as well.
Is the route basically to stardom for any person that wants to do comedy is to write through radio, then move to BBC Two, and hopefully be promoted to BBC One?
Well, it doesn't have to be BBC Two, but radio is a very good way into comedy. It's a very accessible way in. If not radio, then the stand-up circuit is another way that a lot of people have got in, and they've been picked out that way. Yeah, so there are many routes in, but radio is the one that a lot of writers I know have got into TV comedy.
Do you feel shows like The Big Breakfast do themselves justice in the morning, trying to sometimes make some great jokes, but at 7 a.m. in the morning, do you think you can handle it?
No, really, you want first thing in the morning, you want your TV presenters going, oh, I feel shit, oh, I want to go back to bed, instead of going, oh, great, isn't it a lovely day, wow. But their Big Breakfast is done really well. I mean, you had that whole world of sort of sofas and V-neck jumpers of Frank Boffin's of the Anne Diamond sort of pastel-y world, and Big Breakfast came in with a big modern gaudy look and stole all their viewers away, and so you have to take your hat off to Planet 24, whoever it is you make it.
Do you feel places like BBC Two are the good places for comedy to mature? Do you feel late nights on BBC Two is the best time to have a show for young aspiring comedians to? Well,
you can't stick out experimental shows at 7 o'clock on Saturday on BBC One, because they'll just be overexposed and the audience will turn off. So you get shows like Absolutely Fabulous and The Day Today, which are sort of tried out on BBC Two, but something like Absolutely Fabulous was then moved to BBC One because it was so successful, and strangely, people are unable to watch it on BBC Two, but they'll watch it on BBC One, so its audience figures went up hugely when it was on BBC One. I don't know why people are unable to just press the 2 button on their remotes, but there we go, that's the strange British viewing public. But yeah, if you're going to have try out new stuff, then best to do it late on a minority channel, and then you can allow people the risk of failure, which is something we should encourage, the chance to fail.
Jack Doherty, why did they let him on TV?
I quite like Jack Doherty, actually. He I don't know how many nights a week he's doing that, but I think Jack Doherty's a good guy and funny writer. He's a good writer when he's on Spit and Image, and I quite enjoy his sitcoms, so I rushed to the defence of my colleague there.
In the days of Spitting Image, did you feel that you were on the forefront of comedy, and all the newspapers were looking towards you for the answers of how to attack the Tory government?
Well, I'm not sure about they're all looking at us, but Spitting Image was one of those shows that was a sort of a seminal show in the sort of history of British comedy, and I was there from 89 through to 93, which is five actual years I was writing on it, and I think its influence is probably the greatest when it was sort of first burst onto the scene, or maybe its second or third series. So by the time I came on, it was not quite as exciting as it had been. But that's not to say that we weren't rung up regularly by journalists and asked how we would portray Edwina Currie when she was promoted to the cabinet, or Betty Boothroyd when she became speaker. They always wanted to know what we were going to do with these people, and when Kenneth Baker was made a slug or whatever, they would cover that in the tabloids, and it gives them a good picture and a good story, and gives us a bit of publicity as well. So we're always very happy for that. But I think that was quite a high-profile show, and I was quite proud at the time to be involved in it.
Do you think governments, as themselves, just make themselves open to criticism through comedians?
I don't think it makes themselves open to comedians. I think it's just healthy that we are allowed to, and thank God we live in a country where you're allowed to take the piss out of politicians. Obviously, governments are going to make mistakes. They're the same as everyone else, but I don't think they're really that bothered about what the comedians are saying. I think they've got higher things on their agenda. I don't think Tony Blair's pacing up and down in Downing Street going, "Oh my God, what David's really? What are they going to say in the comedy store tonight?" I think he's got other concerns.